Hey, welcome to another Star Wars Battlefront 2 modding tutorial. In this one, I'm just going to briefly look at how to include vehicles in your map. And I'll go over a couple different kinds. We'll go over just basic hover and speeder type vehicles, and I'll also quickly touch on how to add walkers because they are a little different. So I'm just here in the data ABC folder, which is the root folder for our map. And the first thing that you always want to do is make sure that you know which vehicles you want to add ahead of time, so you can make sure that you have all the assets. In our case, we've already got everything loaded into our sides, so if I go to sides, one of the ones I want to load is the AAT for the CIS. And so I'm going to go to the sides CIS folder and just make sure that in the rec file, which again is just a list of all unit classes and vehicle classes that are going to be included in the sides.level file when we munge. So you can see here there's quite a few. Most of these we won't be using, and you can get rid of the unused ones if you want, but if I look through here you can see that CIS hover AAT is included there already, and so that should do it for us. We just need to make sure, of course, that that's also here as well in the ODF folder. Obviously you'll just want to take care to make sure that you have all the appropriate files, like the mesh files, the texture files, ODF, any effects that are needed. So as long as that's in the cis.rec here, then that'll be good enough. Now the next place we want to go to is ABC CCon, or just whichever era and game mode script that you're going to be adding the vehicles to. And so what we're going to do is just add the AAT in here where we have the read data file side cis.level. We can just add that in on the end of the list here because you have already your infantry units, riflemen, rocketeer, etc. So we'll just add CIS hover AAT, and that's it. Since it's at the end of the list, it does not get a comma at the end of it. In fact, it'll cause problems if you do have an extra comma at the end. So just leave that out. And ones that are in the middle or beginning of the list need to have the comma afterwards, because that indicates that there's another entry coming after. Great, so we've got the AAT in there, and that's the only thing that we need to change in the actual Lua file. So I'm going to save that. And then I'm actually going to go back to data ABC and just open up Zero Editor next, and just open up abc.world. Alright, so here we are in our example map. Now I want to make the vehicles available only in conquest mode, so you may remember that we have layers that we can switch between for different game modes or other purposes, but in this case we want to just go to the conquest layer, because that contains our conquest command posts and conquest specific objects. Now that I'm in the conquest layer, I'm going to go to object, and I'm going to select a CP. I'm going to maybe go with one of the neutral ones just to demonstrate how this works. So CP3 is just over here, and actually that's not ideal for spawning a vehicle, so I'll use CP4, which is this one here. It's got a little more space around it. So to add vehicles, and I have touched on this in previous tutorials, we need to have what's called a control region, which is basically just a large bounding region inside of which there are vehicle spawns that are affected by or controlled by this command post. So right now we don't have one for CP4. If we toggle regions view, you can see there's just the basic capture regions for the command posts. I'll just enter a name into the control region field here. I like to keep it simple and call mine CP4 control. That's what it'll be called. Now we'll add a new region. So we'll go to Edit Mode, Region. And we need to not use new region, we need to create a new group each time we want to make a new region. Sounds funny, I know, but just trust me, you'll avoid a lot of problems by doing that. So if I click there, and then just go to Select Region, and click this new region, it's been named by default Region 0. We need to go to Region ID and rename it to CP4_control, just like the name that we entered in the command post properties. And we also need to change the class properties to the same thing, CP4control. Okay, don't worry about the change type or anything like that, just CP4control, and then same thing here, CP4control. Now we can move regions the same way that we move objects, so you just hold C and then use your mouse buttons to move it up or down, left or right. Looks like we've got it in a pretty good spot here. It doesn't have to actually touch the command post. I could move it way over here or over there. I'm just going to keep mine roughly centered here for now. Now to change the size, you don't use the there's no way to really change the scale of other objects, so there's not really a hotkey for it, but you just go over here with your region selected to the height fields, and so you can change the axes, the dimensions here. So I'm going to make mine a bit wider. I'm going to make it 20 wide in the x-axis. Y-axis is fine, and make this about 15, so it's got a little more depth to it. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Actually just going to move it back a little ways. Alright, so we've got the control region. It's hooked up to the command post. And now all we really need to do is get the vehicle spawner objects in. I'm just going to turn on my regions so I know roughly where they are. So we go to Object, Place, and we want to browse. The vehicle control, vehicle spawner objects are not going to be in your ABC world folder. That you have to go all the way back to Data ABC, Common, ODFs, and then if you just scroll down through the items here, you can find COM item vehicle spawn. So just open that up. And now when you zoom in a little bit here, the object that you're going to be placing is a little arrow, basically a little untextured arrow, and the vehicle will spawn facing the direction that the arrow is facing. In this case it's facing a pretty good direction. It'll be facing the center of the battlefield, so that's great. And I will place 2 of these, and remember they need to be inside the control zone. So I'll place one here and one here. Okay, so now we go back to Select Object. I'm going to click the first one, and now we just need to change some properties. This is pretty straightforward. The only thing that you want to watch out for is this first field here. So this says control zone, and you might think, oh, you would want to put CP4_control in there, because that is the name of the control region. However, we actually just want to put the name of the command post in. So in our case, that's CP4. And what will happen is the vehicle spawner will check with the command post to see what region is the control region, rather than just directly going to that region. So it seems a bit funny, and maybe the name for this property isn't the best, but that's how it's done, and it's not too hard to remember. We want to leave spawn count at 1, just to keep things simple. That's the number of vehicles that will spawn at any given time from this object. So 1 is good in all cases. If you want more vehicles, just make more spawner objects. And then these properties here, we have spawn time, so how much time it takes for a vehicle to spawn after it's already, after it's been destroyed. We have expire time enemy, so if there's a vehicle sitting here and hasn't been touched and the enemy takes this command post, how long is it going to take before the vehicle starts losing health and eventually explodes. Expire time field is the same thing, but it happens if the vehicle is left outside of this control region for too long. So after 40 seconds it'll start expiring. And then decay time. I cannot remember exactly what that does, but I will come back to that. So then here we get into the classes for which kinds of vehicles are going to spawn here. Now you might wonder why there's a bunch of different options. In fact, if we go to page down, there are tons of different options. And these are here because the spawner needs to take into account which team might own the command post, as well as which team is the attacker. So you can see we have all attacks. That's if the rebels are attacking, or if the CIS are attacking, Imperials attacking. Now in most Lua files, by default, if you go up here, you can see that Republic is always going to be attacking by default, and CIS is always going to be defending by default. And you can change this, of course, but there's not really too much point in doing that unless you're getting into some more advanced stuff. If we just go to the second page by pressing that page down button, you can see that we have class Republic attacking and class CIS defending, which are the two states that are actually accurate to this. Okay. Now if we were to enter CIS hover AAT into this field, we would have the AAT spawning when the Republic controls this point. So we actually want to use this one instead. Class CIS defend. So I'll just enter that right now. CIS hover AAT. Press enter, and that's it. Alright. And now we can actually just, instead of having to change everything manually in the second one, we can just go copy from here and click on this second spawner and go copy to, and you'll notice CP4 appears there and CIS hover AAT appears here. Now in this case it was only a couple of fields that we made some basic changes to, but for other objects or more complicated vehicle setups, it can be pretty helpful just to use the copy from and copy to features. So now we have these two objects, and they'll be spawning AATs in game when the CIS controls this command post. So we'll leave it at that for now. I'm just going to save, close, and again everything is fine here. We have CIS hover AAT there already. And we'll just go munge now. Okay, now we do need to munge common, remember, because we made the change to the Lua file. So I'll just let that do its thing really quickly. Okay. And now, if we go ahead and play the map, we'll see AATs there when the CIS takes that command post. So I'm just going to quickly do that off the camera here, and then I'll come back once I've demonstrated that. Alright, so I'm in game here, and I've just captured that command post a few moments ago. Now if we wait just a little bit here, we should start seeing those vehicles spawning. Just need to give it a moment. And you can see now, after just a little while, the AATs are now spawned there. And we can drive them around as much as we want. So that works. Alright. Now let's say we want to make things a little more complicated, in a good way. Let's go ahead and add a Republic vehicle. Now I haven't made any changes to the Republic side in this example map, so you'll see there's no DC here. That just means that we're using the stock Republic file. But I happen to know that the Republic tank vehicle is called Rep Hover Fighter Tank. So I'll just enter that in under the Republic side and save that. And that's really all there is to that part of it. And if I open up Zero Editor again, just go back into ABC. And now let's head back into the Conquest layer, go to Object, Edit Mode, and go page down. If we change class Rep Attack to Rep Hover Fighter Tank, and copy that to this one as well. Now what happens is if the CIS is controlling this command post, the AATs will spawn here. But if the Republic captures that command post, then the fighter tanks will spawn here instead. So this is a good way of adding a little balance while maintaining realism, because you don't really want necessarily the AATs to continue spawning here if the Republic is in control of this location. Maybe you do, but that's up to you, and all a matter of personal preference and what you want to do with your map. This was used heavily in the stock maps. Pretty much every vehicle spawner will switch over depending on which team controls. And this doesn't have to be limited to one era as well. You do also have all defend and imp attack. So the Empire, you could also enter that here and just keep the same two vehicle spawners for Galactic Civil War and Clone Wars, just to keep things nice and simple. Now I think that we want to work on adding another kind of vehicle here. Let's add an ATTE. So that's one of those six-legged walkers on the Republic side. So we'll start by heading back to the Lua file. And all we need to do to start off is enter rep walk ATTE at the end and save. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, walkers are a little bit different, and ATTEs are even more different than your other kinds of walkers. So what we also need to do is scroll down past the rest of the side information, and we need to look at this section here. So we have add walker type and then several different entries here. So basically the best way to look at this is to imagine that each of these numbers in the beginning here, the first entry, first argument in this function, is a pair of legs. So you have walker type 1 would be, for example, an ATST or an ATRT, so it has two legs, one pair of legs. Walker type 2 is, for example, the ATAT, so it has two pairs of legs, or four legs. And then add walker type 3 is pretty much just the ATTE, so it has six legs, or three pairs. So we just need to change this. Let's say we want to add just one ATTE. We'll just make that 1. So now we have in the memory pool one 3 pair of legs walker. we have one walker with 3 pairs of legs. And there's one other thing that we need to do, because as I mentioned, the ATTE is different even from other walkers. If we were just doing an ATRT or something, we would have just changed the add walker type, and that would have been it. But since the ATTE and also the ATAT for the Empire are command walkers, meaning that they're basically mobile command posts, we need to add another memory pool here for the game. And what that looks like is this: set memory pool size command walker, and then you can just change it to however many command walkers you have. Again, in our case, we're just adding one ATTE, so we just enter 1 and close the bracket. And that should be enough. So we'll save that. And now we can go back to Zero Editor, load ABC, go OK. Now, the Republic is going to start off over here at this command post. So what we need to do, let's go back to the conquest and object CP1. Let's add a control region because we want to spawn our ATTE at this command post, so we'll call CP1 control. Okay. Then go to region, new group, and click somewhere with that. Select the region, rename it CP1 control. Property CP1 control, just like the other one. Alright. CP1 control. Perfect. Now, let's select one of our vehicle spawns so that we load it up as the selected type of object, so we don't have to go browsing again. We can just select that and then go place, which will help us to place a new instance of the same kind of object. And we'll put the ATTE a little further back because it needs a little extra room. Actually, since it's so slow, we'll put it a little further ahead, actually, just right here. Select it, and since it's facing left, I'm just going to rotate it like that. And now that I've decided where I want it, I can go ahead and adjust my control region appropriately. You know, I could actually just do this. There we go. Again, as long as it's containing the vehicle spawn objects that are tied to it, that's good enough. I'm going to click this, control zone. Again, we enter the name of the command post, not the region. CP1, we want to spawn 1 vehicle. Now for ATTEs, what you can do, since they're very large, very powerful vehicles, you could increase the spawn time to maybe a very large number that'll never actually be reached, like 10,000, or you can make it even bigger than that if you wanted, or just make it a little more balanced and make it maybe 4 or 5 minutes. In my case, since I really want to be able to see the ATTE quickly in game, I'm just going to make it 15 seconds. Now again, we want to add the actual class in here, so we go rep walk ATTE, and that's it. We can now save. Exit Zero Editor. And let's do a munge. So remember, we need to do common since we made changes to the Lua file. And that's it, because we haven't changed anything in the actual Republic side. We've just called in our script for more parts of the stock Republic level file to be loaded. So let's give it a munge. And there we go. Now I'll open up the mod tool, go to instant action, and just load up our map. And here we go. Let's select the Republic side, and you can actually see already that the ATTE is in-game, and it's available to spawn under. So there it is. We have a functioning ATTE in-game. Now it is missing its sounds, and that is a common problem actually when adding stock vehicles into a custom map, but that's something that you can learn about on the GameToast.com forums. You can learn the fix for that. I will also be doing a video tutorial on how to get that taken care of in the future as well. But as you can see, the lack of sound definitely doesn't stop the ATTE from doing its job of wreaking havoc across the map.
The command post is under Republic control.
I'm encountering a little resistance from the AATs here, most likely.
Get down! Check your fire!
Alright. So this is turning into a much better looking map all the time. And in future tutorials I'll go over some of the other things you can do in Zero Editor to make it more interesting and to make vehicles work a little more smoothly. But for now we know how to get the vehicles functioning in-game, we know how to make walkers work, we know how to get command walkers functioning properly as well, and that's a pretty good start, I would say. So thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to comment or visit the GameToast.com forums. Thanks.